James Christian,
Yes,
House of Lords. Welcome
Mark,
to the Face of Rock. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you.
You are back with a brand new album, Full Tilt Overdrive. Can you tell me about the writing sessions for the record and what were you aiming for this time?
Well, like any other writing session we do, we start with um, the first track, the first track that we feel the strongest about. And that happened to be a track that Jimmy put together called Crowded Room. There was just the music. He gave me the track to it. We started with that song as the benchmark. And then each song that we started writing had to kind of fit in that vein, but not really be like the same song, but just heavier keyboards, more keyboards, especially now that we're using Mark Mangold on keyboards. So the writing process really doesn't change that much. You start with one song and you try to get a theme going. And by the time you get to the last song, you're hopefully on the right track, but you never really know till you actually listen to the whole album.
Uh, that's a great song.
Yeah.
More about other songs, especially the ones you're particularly fond of.
Well, I'm fond of the whole record. I have my favorites. Taking the Fall is one of them. Full Tilt Overdrive is one of those songs that I can't wait to do live because it's just so much high energy to it. There's a song, Cry of the Wicked, which is also just a balls out rocker song. Um, there's a different song on the album. I mean, different, I mean that it's more modern sounding, called Not the Enemy, which I really like a lot because of the fact that it's got a little bit more modern sounds to it than, let's say, the traditional House of Lords music. And then the finale of the album is a 9 minute, almost 10 minute song that I never thought would really get done because, writing a 10 minute song and making it interesting is a very complex thing. People can get bored 3 minutes into a song or 4 minutes into a song. So we had to create something that was just going to have a beginning and an end, but like anything, it had to have end up very strong as compared to where it begins. So 10 minutes in that song, and then Robin comes in the last 1 minute, my wife Robin Beck, on the last minute of the song to take it over the top. So very interesting.
Actually, that's my favorite song. We're talking
Wow.
about High,
Yeah.
closes the album, and it has a great epic feel. Can you maybe get a little bit deeper about the origins of that song?
That song was written, it was presented to me, and pretty much the form, not the form that it is now, but the concept by Mark Mangold. He wrote the lyric to it, and his keyboard intros had the intros together. But what we needed was that deep purple, whatever sound you want to call it. But when the guitars came in, is that what you have? Okay. What is that? I can see purple, but
Purple t-shirt from the latest tour.
deep purple. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, well, that's what we were going for. I said, it's just got to have that kind of impact when you hear it. And Jimmy's guitars sound amazing there. And his guitar playing it's so different than what he normally plays, which is he's a very quick, fast guitar player. There were moments of Jeff Beck in it. There were moments of really just really creative things that went on. And then on top of all of that, you had to have a melody that just wasn't traditional. It had to have some things to it. What makes that melody great to me is the phrasing of it, how it's placed in the track, sometimes behind the beat, sometimes ahead of the beat. You notice it if you're actually listening to it, and you will notice that vocal is not straight down the middle. Even though the music is doing this, the vocal is not. That's what gives it that interesting combination. The lyric, as far as I can tell, and I didn't write the lyric, I just love singing it because the wording of it is so beautiful. And it's about a damsel in distress living in a castle wanting to be freed from the captor. And the end of the song is where Robin comes into the song as being released, and she sounds, like she's very happy that she's released, wailing her ass off. And that's basically the end of the song. When you bring in the wolves and the thunder, you have like a mini movie.
Outstanding. I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to be a video clip to accompany that song down the line.
Yeah, we were thinking of doing just a lyric video on it, because a 10-minute video would be really seriously costly to put that song together. I would love to do it, even if it was in a live environment. But right now we're putting together a video for Full Tilt Overdrive, which it basically has a lot to do with pinball machines, fast cars, and women. So all three, that combination is a great combination, and the Full Tilt really comes from the pinball machine itself. So we're doing a video with a lot of that type of animation in it.
Actually, that brings me to my next question. I was going to ask you why the title Full Tilt Overdrive, and how does it relate to even the artwork? Because, I mean, it's a strong statement, isn't it?
Yes, it actually is. Well, overdrive, Full Tilt Overdrive really means excessive speed. The overdrive part of it does anyway. Full tilt is, I guess, the term that people that play a lot of pinball use that term to hit their machines or tilt it. And I'm not like a master pinball player, but in the video I did happen to do pretty well on it. So that's basically what the concept is. It's just fast speed and rock and roll, just to give you that high energy feel of like a highway star or something like that. And it's something a little different sounding. I like the sound of Full Tilt Overdrive. And basically, you're just taking two different things, the full tilt and the overdrive, and connecting them.
Funny you should say that. When I first came across the press release and I found out what the album title was going to be, translated to me as "We're still going strong."
Yeah, that's what it is. That what it translated to you?
That's the meaning I got out of it.
Well, I guess you could, well, fine with me. Everybody will probably get something different from it. I just know that the full tilt part of it is definitely a pinball type of term, and like I said, overdrive being what it is, just speed. But I like your analogy better.
Let it be.
I might use it in the future.
Feel free. How would you describe the dynamic among the band members nowadays?
It's very, very good. This is basically a new band when you look, except for the fact that Jimmy's still been with me. But as far as the drummer and a keyboard player, and really having Mark on board as a keyboard player should have been something I did years ago. We only did the last record, Saints and Sinners, and this one, and you can really hear the difference in the improvement of energy, direction, consistency, all of those things. So all the music and all the songs are very consistent. Doesn't sound like it's put together. Sounds like it was written to be that album, that particular album.
When it comes to keyboard players, you had a chance of working with two very distinctive keyboard players.
Mm-hmm.
And now Mark Mengold. How would you compare both of them as far as their abilities, the way they work, dynamic?
Well, Greg Giuffria was a very unique type of keyboard player. I knew that from the first day that we worked together. He had a sound of his own. And that's something that he worked on for years, starting with Angel, going into Giuffria. So and it's hard to compete, to find somebody that does that exact same thing. It's only keyboard, but it's more than that. It's a keyboard player who can fill in the spaces and make it grandiose, which is the word that was used a lot in the early days. And I never found that after Greg. I played with many keyboard players who were keyboard players, and it sounded just that. they didn't lift it up to the next level. So except Michael Lupi, who was with Whitesnake, did a couple of tracks with us, and he was excellent. But at the time, he was still playing with Whitesnake, so that was not going to work. In the meantime, Mark Mengel was a friend that was a friend of Fiona Flanagan, and she turned me on to him, and we started talking, and we realized that we knew each other because he worked with Michael Bolton. I worked with Michael Bolton in the early days, not worked with him, but we played the same circuit because we lived in the same state. So we were playing clubs and always crossed paths during that time. But I never crossed paths with Mark. Heard of him. I heard of some of the things he did, but it was never, and I never thought of him being the right person until we got on the phone. He started sending me tracks, and it never stopped. I mean, I had to tell him to slow down because he had so many ideas. A track here, maybe not completed, but great starts. So that's where we left it. So, and we completed this record once we started, probably in about 6 months.
Mm-hmm. What plans do you have to promote the album? Will there be a tour? What's the plan?
2025 is what we're looking for, and we want to start to do some dates in the States. Really important for us because we haven't done a lot of dates in the United States, as opposed to being Europe where we travel and tour a lot. So we'd like to start here and then end in Europe.
I'm not sure if you're aware, as I was getting ready for this interview, I kind of did like a little searching, but this year is 35 years since the band had formed.
Mm-hmm. 35?
35.
Wow, okay.
Maybe we can do like an overview of your recording career. So I will show you some images and
Okay.
Just go for it. So
okay.
What got the ball rolling? Tell me about the beginning of it.
Well, this was my favorite part of my career, I would have to say. First album, I remember that it was all the songs were given to me, and I had a week to learn them. I was in my hotel room, listening to headphones and visualizing me doing these songs. Got in the studio, had 7 days, and Gene Simmons was in the room probably 40% of the time because this was his project, his new band, and he didn't want to just be executive producer. He wanted to be part of the recording process. And then I had Andy Johns behind the board, which was intimidating as hell because everything that he's ever done, I've loved. So it was an honor to work with him. But it was my first record, and I was, very, very nervous that this was, I had to do the best job possible. I learned from Andy that everything doesn't have to be perfect. It just got to feel great, more feel than anything. And so if you do a track and you say, that was a little off, but it had the right attitude, he'd say, you got to keep that. And I learned that through him. But the process was so fast, that part of it, and then going into the video, I Want to Be Loved, that whole thing. From there, we went on a tour of Europe with Scorpions. All of this happened one thing after another. So it was the best time of my life and in my career. That record really had a lot of momentum.
Did things settle down a little bit with Sahara?
No, they got better. They got better. We had plenty of time to write Sahara, and Doug. We were working with Doug Aldrich as the guitar player, and the one song that we worked on a few songs, but the one that we really worked on in a small studio with an Akai. I don't know if you know what they are. They're Akai recording machines. They have cassette tapes, and we recorded "Can't Find My Way Home" the way we wanted to do it. I mean, we loved the Traffic version of it, but we knew that we had to separate ourselves from that song, or else it would have been just a Stevie Winwood song. So we came up with the intro. And Doug came up with these great finger picking little ideas through the chord progression, and then we said we needed a bombastic ending, and that's where the rest of the band came in. Chuck Wright, Greg Giuffria, and it turned from a Traffic song to a sort of a Led Zeppelin song.
Mhm.
It was really a wonderful transition, and it happened so seamlessly. Ken Mary, by the way, one of the best drummers I've ever worked with, and he actually, added so much to bringing that song from the acoustic part to the electric bombastic ending of the song. So yes, that was an amazing track on that record, and something I will never forget, doing that record and doing Remember My Name, which was written by the same songwriting team that wrote The Flame. And we got the song because our manager, Ken Adamany, was also manager of Cheap Trick. So there was a whole family in there. Gene Simmons was involved in getting us tours because there were, he knew he could get them. If he picked up the phone and said, I want my band on there, we got on. So Remember My Name was a song that they said, we need this song as a single. And the band was in the studio all day long recording, and we only had one day to do it, one whole day to record the song, do the vocal. And I fell asleep at around 1 o'clock in the morning and was woken up about 4 in the morning. And that was my time to go and sing. And it was like, I was sleeping. I thought this is going to be it's not going to work out very well. I had a little time to, to wake up, went in the studio and sang that song 3 times. And through the 3 vocals that I had, they got that vocal, put it together. And I loved the way it sounded because it had a tiredness in the sound, which gave it a little bit of an emotional feeling to it that I probably wouldn't have been able to get had I been wide awake. Things just sounded different. So that song was another one for me that was a highlight of that album. And there are many others on Sahara, but those 2 stick out the most for me.
That's some great trivia here.
Yeah.
Demons Down, the story continues.
Well, this one was the heartbreaker. It really was. We left our management with Ken Adamany, and we had new management, which I can't remember their names because we were with them for such a short period, but they were the managers of Guns N' Roses at the time. So they loved the album Demons Down. It was recorded. We had plenty of time to record it, and everyone believed it would be the breakout record that would take us, right over the stratosphere. By the time we got finished with it, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, we had full-on orchestras when I did Inside You. I sang that song in the studio with about 40 musicians, violins, cellos, you name it, everything. And it's just, intense, the kind of stuff we were doing. And when we went to the album party we had it in Palm Springs. Tommy Aldrich had a place down there. Tommy was playing drums, and I reserved a room down there for us to have this party for the House of Lords Demons Down release. And we had the program directors there. Program directors loved the album, but about 2 or 3 of them came up to me and said, James, it's going to be hard to put this record on in the next month or so because the formats are changing to Seattle music, and that's all they're told to play. The program stations have people that they have to listen to as far as what their roster of songs is going to be. And he was right. And it didn't just happen in a few spots. It happened pretty much everywhere where the Seattle sound took over right when we were just ready to, release the record. It was the worst time possible.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, which eventually led to the band stopping being a band, right?
Exactly. At that point, when you put out a record like Demons Down, or you finish a record like Demons Down, you go, this is the best thing I've ever done. Everybody in the band felt the same way. It was kind of just like, what do we do now? We're certainly not going to start writing grunge music songs or garage band songs because we would sound stupid doing it. It's not what we do. So we just really kind of just laid low for almost 8, 9 years, I would say. And
Yeah,
by that, yeah,
the band eventually reformed by what, 2000? What sparked this reformation?
Frontiers Records contacted, I guess back then they contacted Chuck and Lanny to put together a House of Lords record. And by that time, I was working on a new business that I had, raising my daughter with my wife Robin Beck. So I was really in a different place. I was really, really happy being a dad, and so it was. I didn't feel like there was anything empty in my life. So they kept hammering me, "You got to do this record with us," and they sent me the songs. I listened to the songs, and I didn't really feel that they were the songs that I would have wanted to release on this record. I don't want to trash the record because it was a good record in terms of being musically, perfect. But it wasn't an album that I could really sink my teeth in vocally.
And you're referring to Power and the Myth, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there's only a couple of songs on there that I thought, for me, were comfortable songs for me to sing. I mean, things have to be in my range, and they've got to be able to be. There's got to be stuff that I can work with, and these songs almost sounded like they wanted to be alternative, and that's definitely not what I do.
Was the follow-up World Upside Down more of your liking?
Yes, that's what the story there was. After Power and the Myth came and went, Serafino called me and asked me, "James, can you do a record like House of Lords, going back to what you did on the first three?" And I said, "Yes, I can." I said, "But I don't think the other members are going to want to." And I was pretty sure that Chuck and Ken were definitely not interested in doing. They felt like going backwards, maybe. I mean, because they would have been the people to use if that was the case. So I figured out, let me try something different, and I got a hold of Jimmy Bell, who I've worked with. Not worked with. We work in the same club circuit. We knew each other very well. I knew of his band Bell Attack and I joined forces, and we started talking about, let's write a couple of songs together and see how it comes out. And he at that time mentioned, "James, when you were looking for a guitar player for Sahara, I sent you a tape in." And I said, I didn't get it, because if I did, I would have, in a heartbeat, I would have recommended you as the new guitar player. But at that time, then we already had Doug Aldrich playing on the record. So it was, we were moving forward with that. But Jimmy Bell did come back in, sent me a couple of songs. First track was "I'm Free." He didn't have anything lyrically or melodically. He just had a track. And along with my writing partner at the time, Jeff Kent, we came up with the song "I'm Free." And from there, forget it. We wrote that album in like 2 months. I was so hungry to do great, to do music that was really inspiring me, that we just didn't stop. And that's where World Upside Down came.
Yeah. Years later, Come to My Kingdom shows up.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, now that was a record done the same way that World Upside Down was. I figured the formula of what we did there, we didn't want to just rebrand ourselves again. We wanted to do something that was an extension of World Upside Down, and Come to My Kingdom fit that perfectly. We used the same songwriters, same mixer. Dennis Ward did both of those records, so they were both very, very compatible.
Yeah. You kind of break the pattern with Cartesian Dreams, because that comes on 1 year after. So that means really good with the band.
Yeah. And that was that album is when I started working with Mark Baker, who was really a heavy songwriter in Demons Down. We wrote probably 3/4 to almost all the album. Bob Marlette contributed a few songs. I don't know if he's a producer, but very good producer. So Well, I brought Mark in. I said, "This is the time, Mark. Let's write some songs and put the album together." Cartesian Dreams was the album. I started to really feel some um, creative songwriting. We're really moving forward from the World Upside Down and the second album, Come to My Kingdom. What was the mistake that I thought on my part was we didn't use Dennis Ward to mix it. I mixed part of it, and then you realize that when you're not a mixer, things, I mean, to me, things sound one way, but to someone else, it's a whole nother thing to try and mix your own music, unless you are Mutt Lange. That I wasn't. So, and my ears weren't as good. So that album one day will be remixed and it will floor people because people love the record, but to me it sounded more demo-ish than like this bombastic record that should have exploded out of speakers. And so I want another shot at that one.
Um, did that happen with Big Money? That's a very unusual title. Kind of takes you away from that fantasy feel.
Yeah, it does. Again, Mark Baker, I don't ever question him when it comes to lyrics. He's one of the best out there for lyrics and melodies. So he came up with that title, and for some reason, the song really came out great. And it's just about people, the whole idea of so much power in people that have all the good, the money. So it was kind of a corporate type of protest song. I'm not used to doing that type of thing. I'm not a protester or anything like that, but that song had that feeling of, fed up with the hierarchy and people that live in ivory towers, that type of thing.
Well, Precious Metal kind of brought it back to more of House of Lords style.
Yes, House of Lords. I'm sorry, Precious Metal was mixed by the gentleman that I mentioned, Bob Marlette. I wanted to go back to a producer that I know has fabulous ears and could do this album. And the songs, I love the songs on Precious Metal. Very, very well crafted songs. And I was also working with another writer, and I can't remember his name right now because it has been years and I'm getting older. So. But if I do remember, we'll swing back to that. But we wrote the record. I sent it to Bob Marlette, and he would send me. He said, "Let's call these test mixes. That's how I'm going to send them to you. Test mixes." I said, "Okay, whatever you want to call them." And he would send it back, and I go, "Jesus, man, that's like that's like 80% there. What do I do? If I tell him something to do, I might be screwing up with what already is 80% right to me." And this was on his first pass, which I believe that somebody has an extremely great talent when they can do that. So we just made small minor changes to I waited till the whole album was completed, mixed, and then I just wrote down each song, a little tweak here, a tweak there, a tweak there, and boom, the record was done. That mix was done probably in a week. That's pretty amazing. It did well. It did very well for us too. It got very well received.
Another show of strength, appropriately titled "Indestructible."
Indestructible. Yes, that's when we got a little heavier. If you notice, 100 miles an hour, swimming with the sharks. I mean, there was some seriously high energy songs on that record. I love the songs. We played those songs live a lot, but a lot of the times the songs that go over the best on live performances seem to be the mid-tempo songs where people can really groove into the music, or when it happens to be where the tempo is at 194, it kind of loses its grip to the audience because they're not really catching on to what's going on. So, and that album, an Indestructible, does have a lot of heavy and high tempo songs. Mm-hmm. The artwork was done by a gentleman called Ionis, and he literally does those drawings. So we didn't do that on every album, and he wanted to do an album. It was a perfect one for him to do, and that probably is one of my favorite covers because of how intricate his work is.
It is very intricate.
Yeah, yeah,
Saint of the Lost Souls.
yeah.
Again, a little bit more
Same,
balanced.
yeah, yeah. Definitely balanced from Indestructible. Still had the heavy edge to it, and we had a new mixer again with Ty Sims. We used Ty on a lot of our records from that point on, but there is a transition we'll get to. Saints of the Lost Souls had some very strong songs on it. It did well for us, and all of these albums did well for us with Frontiers, because if you didn't, then you don't get the next record. We were getting signed 2 deals at a time at that point. They didn't want to just sign one album, then find out we weren't going to, we wanted something else or go to another label. But at that point, Frontiers was the only label you could really go to and get the support. So we were happy to sign double deals with them, 2 albums at a time, and we released them usually a year and a half between each other, sometimes 2 years.
New World, New Eyes.
COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I worked with Mark Spyro on this one, and rest his soul. I love the guy, and writing with him was such a pleasure. And his ideas to me are just gems. He's one of those guys, a prolific songwriter he came up with ideas where I could take it and make it my own. Songs like Both of Us. Now, The Both of Us is a song that maybe a band like Cheap Trick would have done. And I think that album kind of threw people off a little bit because it was very commercialized. It didn't have big, grandiose songs. It had songs. Like most of the songs are 3-4 minutes long, but they were all great songs. They really were. The ballad that we had on that record was fantastic. We had one song that was in a HBO special with John Cena. I think his name is John Cena, and he played an action hero, and they used the song "The Both of Us" on it, and it was, it was paid very well to have that song on HBO. And I thought to myself, of all the albums we've ever done, they pick it from that album. And I said, that's probably because that was a very well written song, 3.5 minutes long, commercial. That's the word I guess I'm looking for. It was a commercial rock song, and most of our audience really just wanted to hear the AOR side of House of Lords.
Stepping out of the darkness, Saints and Sinners.
Yep, that's where Mark Mangold came in. And that's where it began. He wrote a song for me. It was called "In the House of the Lord." And I thought, well, the House of Lords and the House of Lords, I get it. It's kind of like, I don't even know where we're going with this. As we were building that song, because he had a very rough demo of what he thought that the song should sound like. By the time we got done with it, I said, man, this sounds like something from Pleasure Palace, the album, which was our first album. I said, this is great. This is a great direction for us. We continued on that direction as much as we could. Saints and Sinners was another song that was a Mark Mangold song. And then a lot of Jimmy Bell and myself doing some of the other stuff, which was more traditional rock songs. And that album got very well received because we used a lot of keyboards incorporated with the guitar. You never taking the heaviness away from the guitars, but it was just written differently. And plus we had new players. That album had new players, Mark Mangold, Kohlberg, Johan Kohlberg on drums, and Jimmy, of course, on guitar, which he has a signature sound that nobody has. And myself. So that was the beginning of where things started to really make sense to me again musically. After a while, you know, you do so many records, you're kind of wondering if you're just like floundering. And that point, I really felt this is not floundering. This is definitely moving forward.
Mhm. And completing the circle brings us back to this album. We spoke about it before. What are you hoping for the album?
Well, just the other day, we were I don't have it in front of me. There's a Apple Music just named it as a heavy hard rock pick, which goes into their chart. And what it means is that the editors look at songs that they feel are going to break out heavy. And that's exactly what you know, they're predicting that the song is going to be a, you know, a big seller. So that song was taken the fall. Of all of them that I thought, I mean, I didn't think that would have been what they chose, but it's more of an Americanized song, a song that the US is going to love because it's got a little bit of a, I won't say, I hate to say country, not that I don't love country, but it's got finger picking, kind of the low drop D finger picking, and it sounds like Can't Find My Way Home, a little bit similar to that song. They picked it, and it's really doing well on downloads and on Spotify. It's just it's got some legs.
Great.
Yeah.
The name House of Lords, how did that even originate?
Well, Gene Simmons, he literally just spit it out. But it's going to be Balance of Power, and I really didn't like that. I didn't like the title. I just thought, you know, we got to come up with something better than that. And Gene Simmons said, you know, he said, your band and your music sounds royal. You sound like royalty. And then right after that, he said, House of Lords. Everybody just went, that's it. You know, there was not one person in the band that didn't agree that that was the name of the group. So a lot of people take House of Lords on our part to be more religious. I hear it all the time from people that House of Lords sounds more like you're a like a Christian band, but House of Lords is actually the Parliament. So if you look at it that way, that's more or less where we got, you know, House of Lords. That's what Gene was thinking. I think.
That's what
I
I'm
think.
a bunch of, you know, British old geezers and
Hey,
those fake wigs.
I know it's very funny. I mean, every time I go to England, that's what I think. You know, going to the Parliament and, you know, saying, "Hey, I'm from the House of Lords." Yeah, but you can't come in. Still can't come in. But it's just I love the name. I think it is grandiose. It's royal, and it's nice to be called lords. You know, and it's just people had a lot of fun with it, and I still do.
Yeah, you certainly seem
You
like.
know, I told who was I think Chuck Wright many years ago. I said, you know, if we're together 15 years from now, we could change the name to House of Pancakes and get away with it. He's like, no, that was definitely a joke, but he to this day it's one that he remembers.
There you go.
Yeah.
So finally, when you look back at the last 35 years, how would you explain the passion that drives you to make music and to make all of these albums we just spoke about?
Well, for me, I know exactly why because I was a late bloomer. I think. I mean, I got my first record deal at 30, 34 years old, 35 years old. And I thought to myself, I mean, I worked hard in the nightclub circuit doing cover music. That was my thing. Then I had an original band in Connecticut, and it was a very good band. We drew well in Connecticut, so we were working and making a good living. But I was offered to go to California to audition for a group to replace the singer was Jeff Scott Soto, and the band was called LA Rocks. So I sent them in 2 tracks that I did for them, and they invited me to come out there. I auditioned for them and got that gig, but they didn't have a deal yet. They had songs, but they didn't have a deal. And they actually liked the name of the band that I was in called Eyes. So they decided to use that title for the band. But that was after I left. During the time I was doing LA Rocks, I had sent a tape to Chuck Wright because I knew that they were looking for a singer for Quiet Riot. About 8 months went by when I didn't hear anything from them. Obviously they found somebody else, and then I met Chuck when LA Rocks needed a bass player for a showcase we were doing, and Chuck goes, I know your voice. I've heard that. It's very, very identifiable. And he goes, did you ever send me anything? And I said, well, I did send you a tape. I left it at your door because you told me to. I knocked on it, and you said, well, just leave the tape outside. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because they had already chosen a singer at that time. But he goes, you're perfect for the new project that I'm going to be working with. And that was House of Lords. No name yet, but that's what the members were. And then I had to go through the audition process with them, Greg Giuffria, Gene Simmons. With Gene Simmons, it wasn't so much an audition; it was a character audition. It really was, it was amazing. You know, he was asking me about drugs and things like that, and what's important to me, and I gave him the truth. I said, the truth is, I love being a musician, singing, playing. I'll do whatever it takes to do what I have to do. He knew I had the voice because he had heard the demos I did. And he walked away and he just said, yeah, you're the guy. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, that's what I've been waiting for. But for so many years. And he was the guy that gave me the break, and I'll never forget it. So that's it.
James, thank you so much for this great chat and this history, and good luck with the new album.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and hope everyone out there picks up a copy. You have it in vinyl for those who love vinyl. It's a double album. The albums are gold, so it really the whole package is just fantastic. And hope to see you in the States very soon, and especially Chicago.